By some common experience, I have observed that human communication, or at least the communication that is around me and of which I am a witness, a party, is a dumb charades. Imagine the old movies, schools, all that, the game, a game that which tells you that you cannot, there are two people in the game, an actor and a receiver, and an actor has to convey, let us say, the name of the movie or the name of the, your class teacher, by enacting the words, whether you can just go to a literal imagination, right? Or maybe you can tell something about the movie. If a movie is very erotic, you can show, I don't know how people show eroticism, but I'm sure they do. So you will, in your mind, you will convey the essence of that word, the unknown, the X, so that the other person grasps you. The challenge is that you will not be able to use words. So all of the philosophy, all of the world's knowledge, which is based on language. So technically, a person who is not well apt in a language will make errors. People who are not well versed in Sanskrit or Persian or Arabic will be looted by the priests, the Maulvis, the Ojha, Guni, Tantrik, Hakim, all that thing. Because they have not read it, so they will need that thing. Because the world is such ordered that if you know all the words of a dictionary, you are a very intelligent person. Of course, you are a very intelligent person if you know all the words of the dictionary. The limits of my world, the limits of my language are the limits of my world, whereof one cannot say anything, thereof one must be silent. Mathematically, philosophically, it has been proven that language has its limits. And the more you explore it, so a person who talks in 7 languages is definitely a smarter and more, in the quote-unquote, human than a person who does not know to read his literature. Because if you are not good at language, you cannot read literature. That is why literature is so extinct. On the contrary, you are very expert, veteran in seeing. The world is big, the knowledge, the whole fulcrum of the world. If world is a lever, where there's a load, there's an effort, and there's a fulcrum, so you are the load because you are going to be dealt with. You are a person. Obviously, load is a matter. Effort is a force, which is not matter, which is phenomena, right? And the fulcrum. So what is the fulcrum? So if you imagine a seesaw, there are two sides, one fat boy, one thin girl, all that thing. You have to have two different objects for the seesaw to move, otherwise it will be in equilibrium. So fulcrum. The fulcrum is knowledge, which is decipherable through words, decipherable through signs. Words and signs count everything, not even audio, music. What do you say? We do not know for sure what Caesar heard, what the Machiavellian prince heard. We do not know. We have an idea that there is just piano, there is classical. But if they have different histories, they have different music. But you do not care. What did they eat? Nothing. These all parts are excluded. Eating is as essential as seeing, because if you don't eat, then you perish, unfortunately. Though you do not believe it so. You say, even when I perish, I exist. I am perpetual. कभी कभी तो लगता है साला अपुनिज भगवान है, और वो कभी कभी रोज हर क्षण लगता है. It's a daily motion. So what to do and how do the words and sign manifest into, they are two both external things. The person is not born with a word, so they do not know that if somebody tells you hi, good morning, that child when born is not aware that he has to say hello, how are you. That is induced. Or those children who are so gifted should come up and explain how so. Because there have been literature and movies and folklores where there's the mother abandons her child because she had premarital sex, and that sex yielded into a child, which means there were numerous encounters of sex. It was just not a passing by, a rub of the cheek. And for reasons best known to the men of our society, they could not keep that child with them, because obviously a child must have a DNA of the legal mother and father in the consent of the grandfather and grandmother. That broke the order. Everybody should read 2 volumes of Francis Fukuyama, even though he is a conservative right-wing Trump supporter, if he is at all. Or so media publishes him, because Fukuyama must not be bothered with what is in the news today, at least on the level of Instagram and Twitter. So, 2 volumes of Fukuyama, The Origin of Political Order, and I'm not sure about the second title. I myself haven't read it well. It's not available on PDF. But it has the political decay. So the origin of political order is a story of the political order, and what is political and what is order in mankind, at least as from a Eurocentric perspective. Of course, Fukuyama must also be credited for his Japanese ancestry, wherefrom he brings the Eastern perspective and then the Bali Sumatra perspective. Francis Fukuyama is a well-read man. But the whole history, the whole consciousness of history, the whole consciousness of everything that one can have on an abstract level, which is career, which is occupation, marriage, friendship, which is physical, and physical in true sense. Other relations are not. No other relation, you are not supposed to kiss your manager. And you know it. The genius child who knew hi, good morning, hi, how are you, can also explain that how he thinks it is not. So the burden of proof is on him. As a defense or as a respondent to the proponents of social order and civilization, whatever they want to, if they want to go local, specific, fine by me. If they want to talk generic, fine by me. But they have to talk about it. They just cannot use stakes. I don't like stakes. Better use catapult. At least I have a chance to escape. It will be from a distance. Stakes are very, very conjoining. How does one get away from a world filled with so much anxiety, so much chaos? And we can, by common laws of mathematical deduction and also through rigorous philosophical contemplation, reduce all of this to the behavior of man and man, woman, individuals. Unlike what classical sociologists believed, that they are right in believing because they ensured that the society behaved that way. Adam Smith believed that if you bring 100 laborers together, they can do miracle, the country will prosper. Country did prosper, but for the likes of Adam Smith, not for the 10 people. Their lives were deteriorated as hell. There has been no case of madness and insanity prior to 15th century industrial revolution. People believed if somebody is mad, which is deviant, they are saints. Be aware of the Ides of the March. So Julius Caesar is a tyrant. He does not care from the seven seas. He goes unquestioned. He is coronating himself without the consent without the knowledge of the Senate. He just told them that tomorrow is my consent on the Ides of March, the day after the 12th of March, or sorry, 1st of March, sorry. But in the coronation ceremony, Caesar does not even like his audience, who were filthy as foams, who were commoners, who were laughing at him as if he is a clown. They should have revered him. These all come from the celebrated Julius Caesar play by Shakespeare. But he tells a soothsayer passes and tells him, because he has heard somewhere people conspiring that Caesar will no more on 2nd of March. So this he thought to tell the Caesar on front. So that is the tyranny of Julius Caesar, and that is the beauty of your democracy. Just not talk about that. Listen to compare, because people do not know because people do not know more. They are unable to compare an alternate version of themselves. So if you are a convicted criminal, it is because you have not read 100 volumes of criminology. Otherwise, you won't be criminal. That is too cheap a bargain in a big life where everybody is intelligent as per Noam Chomsky. He may be actually right. At least he is very right about what he said. And that individual has a common factor across time, across generation, across everyone. Though you may pretend and deny it, it is a common fact that people, I will use the word people because I don't like to talk about men. I don't want a world with men. Leave me alone, if you will. People are filled with anxiety. People are filled with aspirations. People are filled with pleasure. People are filled with romance. People are filled with cynicism. People are filled with bitterness. People are filled with an unshaken optimism. People are filled with it. It is rare to find a person who, and the person, if you find it, that person will be insane as per your modern definition. So there was a Caesar and a soothsayer. Today there is a well-placed, well-settled family and mad. Because today soothsayers can't exist. Today nobody can tell. The popular leader like Indira Gandhi did not get any trace that she is going to be murdered within last 2 minutes. She was so popular. People worshipped her and the family. They still do. Even the opposition knows it, that you cannot ignore or paint in a strong woman like Indira Gandhi as what you like. You can do it to others. Go ahead. Indira Gandhi had a very colorful life right from her childhood. She is one of the few people who has been expelled from Shantiniketan at the behest of the grand old Rabindranath Tagore, Gurudev. He could not take her progressive concerns. He said that you could be deteriorating my whole institution. But you do not talk about it. You talk about her mettle. Nobody knows what will happen tomorrow. The insecurity is always there. The so-called successful people spend their life maintaining their success. That's such a burden. So-called unsuccessful people are striving to get the success. Again, untenable. One thing is certain, that all the emotions can be contained into one emotion. And at first, two emotions, which is pleasure and pain. Positive, negative, sentiment analysis. You can know whether you like a person or not like a person. You cannot be neutral about it. You have met somebody 18 times and yet the score is 0.00014. You have not made up your mind whether, and such people are very interesting to find. It's very rare to find. You can, good or bad. Memories, good or bad. And how do you evaluate the goodness or badness is a function of your memory. You may have liked certain people when you were together. You were jolly good. But 10 years later you realize that no, you're exploited. You demand compensation. Law of trots has been breached. So today's discussion is about retrogressive evaluation of our world through our memory. And memory is a very strange faculty. One, it is never complete. It cannot be. There are optical restrictions on your sight, audio. You cannot hear a frequency that a dog can hear or a cat can hear. That's why dogs are watched and humans cannot watch themselves also. If people watched themselves just as they watch their property, they would have been better people. But people don't watch themselves. They only watch their property. And all the relationships in this world are property rights. So a person technically 101 ways to become a good person, read Indian Contract Act. Follow it rigorously. Have somebody who enforces it for you. You'll have a great relationship because there is a transfer property. And the mere fact it is pleasure and then it is pain, it is good, it is sadness, I am depressed, it is ecstasy, I love you, let's go to a honeymoon. The judgment is done prior to experiment. That judgment is called prejudice. Everybody, every action is colored by this because it is in design. It is not a negligence. Not all are negligent. Some people diligently kill people in the name of God. They are not negligent. They are well committed, much more than a scientist who is trying to find out the black matter. They are diligent, but they are by design. And that design is derived from memory. You have been told that certain and certain people were not good to you, so you do not have to be good to them. So there, a regular traffic race, his bike goes front your car, or somebody parked a cycle where you were parking yourself, right? This will lead to be, did you see? So this matches. You find patterns that justifies your theory. You do not have a fresh analytic. It's not possible, obviously. When you know that lions eat men, you cannot try every lion not to eat you. But the perception of lion should be objective. It is memory. So what to do about it? So we had a question. The question is, the questioner agrees that one's memory, the so-called remembrance of experience, is colored on several layers. It may be colored by how one felt about it at that point of time. It may be colored by how one continues to feel about it in coming years. It may be colored by the value ascribed to it by your contemporary, your people who matter, who define your social. By social, we should not mean that we have a society of 140 crores for sure. We have a social means. We have 10 people, 100 people. A politician, a businessman, bureaucrat is expected to have a larger social group. So he has larger social capital. So he is a stronger person. You, on the other hand, know only your triple X. 3 X's that you left and the triple X combined. Also in Ram it comes triple X. So you have a so smaller social group. The only guy who knows you is the cleaner who comes to ask his money which you haven't given for the last 6 months. You are not a social capital person. So it is colored, the memory. Also, the questioner admitted that our reality is shaped by those memories. How we see the world, how the world is for us, so quote unquote real for us, is, let us say, managed or manifested by our consciousness. And the questioner was kind enough to show us or quote which that our all consciousness is the consciousness of the immediate self. As an example, if you are happy, the world seems very beautiful to you. If you fall in love, you think everybody has got just one motto in love, to fall in love. And subsequently people do fall in love and they get very fallouts. So it is ineffective. If we believe that memory is not necessary or memory is not productive, then our reality of the world is very distorted. And if it is so distorted, is it not inevitable? Because the anxiety, and the pain and the pleasure, it seems so normal to us. It has to have there. People like Jung has said that a man must recognize his shadows. Only then he will be a true man. Of course, in those days, they implicitly meant man and woman, because either modernists were too disciplined or they were two cheats. They cannot be both at the same time. They were committed. The family back then had some communication. Whether the channel were distorted or not is a matter of separate debate altogether. But unlike today, where communication is, we'll come to that. That was where we started the communication, that the whole world, the communication of our mankind, at least for me, is dumb charades. I am the actor. I always try to tell them through. I even use words to tell them the exact meaning of what I am trying to say, but they won't understand. By evolution, not only has our intelligence grown, but also our stupidities. We have made the person's shadow gets bigger at the right directions. We are in the right direction, so at one end we also have Niels Bohr, we have Max Planck, Albert Einstein, but we also have Hitler, or I don't want to name them because they do not matter, but people from all communities, from all massacres do not seem unnatural to us. For me, it seems very unnatural. I have never seen 10 goats massacring each other, but humans can do it all the night. So it is the pain, is the pleasure, is the chaos, is the confusion inevitable? Can it be cured? If so, how? Not a theoretical description of it, not an instruction manual of it, not a knowledge power dichotomy involved. As simple as cycling. One of the inventions of human science is cycling. There are two wheels attached, and you don't have to put so much effort, only your legs have to move in circular direction, which is not ultimately so hard. You'll get a seat and you can become the Amir Khan of Jo Jeeta Wahi Sikandar. The world is yours. If you do travel cycle in morning or in the suburbs, nobody will come up and disturb you, the pleasure of your cycling, the joy of your cycling, not the pleasure. You don't remember cycling after 15 minutes, 1 hour, when you go back to have dinner, lunch, or before going to sleep, you just realize that, oh, I just made such a pleasurable cycling move. No, it isn't cycling. Not the biking, not the car driving, not the bungee jumping, the cycling. A cycle can tell you a lot about your life. It is combined with technology, it is science. You cannot do away with it. You need social knowledge. You cannot be stubborn enough to say that I'll learn the physics of dynamics by myself and it's all machines, it's just lever and not even no electronic gadget. But you do not remember it because you enjoy it, you do not remember it. If you remember the pleasure that you had the last night with your horny room partner, it means they were not horny enough. Had you been horny enough, you would have lived it at that very moment to your fullest. Either one of them was not horny enough, or let me peek into your room. I am a very Freudian, committed Freudian. I believe, as any good lawyer should, that a person is the most authentic clue to what personality he is, she is. He treated more women than men, and then he concluded that that is not treatment. Because what do you mean by treatment? You treat only the bad stuff. You treat bad children, you beat them up. You treat your enemies, you treat them well. When you treat your enemies well, the enemies know that they are going to suffer. Is it inevitable? Generally, it is hard for people to understand or think that why memories are bad altogether. After all, if there are no memories, you will be left with nothing. If you don't have a photograph of yours and you are 70 years old, you don't have a friend with you who had a good memory, you don't have a person with which you had so much sex that you went leaping onto the moons. If you don't have no memory, if you don't have an accident, a road accident, falling down from the same cycle because you're following another cycle, and that cyclist was not just smart but also tactful. If you don't have any memory, you don't exist. The value, memory gives you a value, whatever value it is. People don't value the world because people don't have good memories, and they value themselves because every time the one memory that comes to even a sufferer is pity. Likes of Nietzsche have discarded pity. If you are giving a coin to a beggar, Nietzsche treats you in hell. Botched are the men who would like to perish, and we must help them to perish, because if that is what they want. Look at the dark humor of Nietzsche that finally found some joy and exuberance in Hitler's methodology. Hitler was an ardent Nietzsche fan. He read Nietzsche. He made sure that even the youngest commander in his army was well versed with a great book like Thus Spake Zarathustra. Everybody knew it. It was a Bible to them, because Nietzsche would quote Zarathustra. He would say that, look at that character, you have to be like them. And the world wouldn't get it in the telegram. They couldn't find out what does that mean, Ubermensch. Ubermensch, Russian Ubermensch, Maro, right, whatsoever. Hitler and Nietzsche are the product of the same mindset. And that is, knowledge, which is derived from memory, is the prerequisite of our existence, let alone let go of the happy existence. Because thankfully, at least one progress mankind has made today to acknowledge that the world is not as beautiful as it is told to believe. Nobody believes in the commercials anymore that if you take a perfume, deodorant, the girls will jump on you. Earlier they did. People bought it. There have been cases in courts where they say that this was not what you showed us to be. That's the spike of it. Maybe a movie star wrote letters with blood, and for years to come, Indian blood was committed to bring out real and raw literature, bloody literature. But pleasure and pain do more than just distorting our perception, the so-called perception. They control, they transform you, they restrict you, they limit you in their... Because a thing is pleasurable when you want to repeat it. A movie is pleasurable if you want to see it again. A person is pleasurable if you want to be with them again. That meeting, you liked the meeting so much that when are we meeting the next time? So did we Saturday? Oh, let's do it on Sunday, please. You like to be again. You want to repeat it. And the same repetition one day becomes monotonicity. It is not even a theoretical suggestion. It is a practical observation. That pleasure, when repeated beyond a thorough critical limit, turns into addiction, obsession, fanaticism. The same pleasures, the same movement, the same action. And we wonder, why would one want to repeat a so-called pleasurable, I would call it an enjoyable, joyous. So, Milton did not, I think it's Keats, did not write a thing of beauty is a joy forever, is a pleasure forever. It is pleasure meeting you, but it was joy. There's a difference. There are two words. Each word is to the limits of human language defined in all the languages. You do not ask pleasure from gods. Oh God, I am a single bachelor. My mom thinks I need to get married. My friends have gotten married. Oh Lord, give me some pleasure. You do not ask that. If you ask, if you are so askance, you would ask the joy of having a family. That's the difference. Why do you want to repeat a pleasure? And it's legal omission, which is avoid a pain. So it is particularly, let us talk about pain because that is more universal, that is more acceptable. Everybody knows slapping another person is a painful experience, but you cannot be sure that if you kiss another person, was that painful or a pleasuresome experience. So let's talk about the pain that has a definite proportion. You die. That is the ultimate pain. And of course, you have been told and you try to maintain that status quo that you are remembered even after your death. It is a matter of great shame to people to imagine the horror that they'll die and nobody will remember them. As if they remember them now. But it feels good. People remember them. People fast for them. People shave their heads, stop eating gutkha, pan. No, pan they eat. Nobody, I have not seen a pan guy miss. Earlier it was more meticulous. Now they are watching TV, Instagramming. These things are allowed in the days of mourning. Any mourning, you go and if they tell you that, oh sorry, we have put some jammer, there's no connection, your phones are taken away, snatched away because my granny has passed away, my sister is no more. So for the 7 hours, we'll just mourn about her, we'll talk about her. It doesn't happen. Mourners, I have seen a new Gen Z culture who takes selfies on mourning. Taking selfies of dead people is a matter of memory of us. But the dead person, had he been asked that, okay, if you're dying, should I take a picture? He would have said, definitely, dude. If you tell me, I'll die right now, but keep taking pictures. Make me memorable. Why do you want to be memorable? Or what does it mean to be memorable? What does it actually mean that it was a pleasure meeting you? We will not talk about joy. At least, because for people, joy and pleasure are same. So if so be it, do about it. But on the other hand, the joy cannot be shared. The joy cannot be told. It can only be shared. And to share, I need to use again knowledge dichotomy of seeing and talking. I cannot share my joy to the whole mankind because for the simple reason I do not know their Instagram handles. If they told me that, hey, I am the mankind and this is my Instagram handle, I can share. But has it ever occurred to us that our memory fades away? First of all, a memory is a selective record of the event. You cannot have complete memory. If you are on a stage, you performed very well, the audience cheered you well, it was a 10-minute performance, you remember the details, the whistles, the enthralling audience who said once more, fair enough. But you cannot remember the order maybe. You're not so sure. Your last story differed in intensity. It's not complete. Or if you know it only your perspective. So you know the memory is not the event, memory is your recollection of your perception of event. It is not an event. It is a perception. Which, basis my connection, is colored, distorted. So it is not. It would be very hard for a person to figure out. A person like me and you, and we are in majority all the time. You give them a ticket to Australia, right? Flight ticket. But the condition is that they have to take 3 flights. One from Dubai, Delhi to Dubai, Dubai to London, and London to Australia. That is the only flight available. You'll pay them. But you cannot imagine the horror they face The airports are designed in such a way that even a 5-year-old child can understand where to go, where not to go. But since they have never been to it, they have rather been to a chaotic place like Nizamuddin station, Howrah station, Mumbai Dadar. It is very hard for them. Because the good thing about chaos is that the common person, the new entrant, at least knows what to do. All are jumping there, let's go to there. And that's not there. The order is maintained. So I don't think people are happy, people would be happy in their sense, in their order. Fukuyama is wrong. Or perhaps he has forgot, he may revisit himself. He is not wrong, but he may reconsider his, it's an appeal against his judgment. The end of history is not end of society. End of society is not the end of man. Everything that everybody said was right, except one thing, that human experience is the most authentic denominator of reality. And human experience is seldom the dominant expression. You are told how to feel good. You are told how to feel bad. The whole pedagogy of child rearing is not. The people ask why China is much more successful than India, because they have controlled their pedagogy. They are using it for their ends. That may be wrong, but they are at least not as juvenile as you, who make the same mistakes of passing it across generations. That thought is very important. A thoughtful person is very, no, if you have a jugglery of words, you are a smart man. If you can write beautiful romantic letters, girls will come to you. Casanova wrote beautiful letters to all of the countess of the kingdoms he visited. Of course, he was a charming man by himself, but his letters also played a big. The play Don Juan is a recollection of Casanova's beautiful letters in the interest of some romance. Go do read it, be Casanova, try it. It's not possible today. Even if you write 100 beautiful letters, the other person must read it. They won't. There's no writing. Because when you write with more, the consciousness, all consciousness is a consciousness of self. Writing is an authentic representation of self. If you have written me 10 slangs, I will not say it is a slip of the tongue, unless you write with your tongue. That varies condition to condition. No, it is not inevitable. It is definitely inevitable because you always choose so. That's your choice. And it is not a law of gravity. By inevitable we mean a physical law of gravity. No matter how much mankind evolves, they still can't get, they'll still get the stones they throw in the sky falling down. No man will become so Hercules after eating protein eggs of the gym that he throws a stone and it goes to moon. Never happens. So, girls, don't go to honeymoon. Go to honeyland. Moons are not so easy to reach out. It is inevitable because of several reasons. Postmodernism is a concrete study of that. That's why people didn't mind existentialism, which was again a slap on capitalism. People didn't mind Marxism. Marxism became super popular. Marxism should have been cut through. As a capitalist, the first task should be to eradicate the Marxists. They do not. They make a mockery of them. They tell people that if you want to be a labor-oriented, that is you. But existentialism was not studied. Likewise, postmodernism is the study of all the studies that were not studied and why they were studied. So, we will not go into that. Why not? Why they have failed? What is the mechanism working? What is it got to the end man? Is that end man a man or a woman? Is that end man or a woman, trans man or a cis man? There are several bifurcations which is overlooked. We are presented with a general formula. That in England, in Europe, there was an industrial revolution, so they needed raw power, raw material, so they colonized countries. We cannot sum up the 500 years of gory colonialism by merely simplicity. We are being too kind to the history. by not reading that. If we read history, we would have known that it is not worth talking about. No history is worth talking about. If you're talking about the pride that Napoleon or Lenin, you're also talking about the shame that they brought upon the opponent, and the opponent is equally a partner in the stake of history. You cannot shade him black or blue, right? They contribute, they made a choice, 100 people made a choice, they pushed the effort, the fulcrum moved and the lever, you got the load. If you have a very powerful muscular person on the other side, a lean person is going to have more fun, obviously, because he'll see the lever move, seesaw move appropriately. And it is also not inevitable because of technology, of science. Incidentally, what has been your delight? You have been weeping for what has been your delight. So today, when technology is coming to large language models, people are afraid that whether AI will kill them. To kill somebody, you have to be living, you are dead long back, because your life does not touch your experience. You are always colored with. The problem with memory is that it is addictive. Addictive in the sense that after a certain times, but animals are never addictive. Animals do have memory, first of all. Animals have great memory. They exactly know. That's why dogs snipe the murderer, not the police. Dogs can exactly know that the scent belongs to him. They are also gifted naturally for our purposes. Of course, that has led to their domestication and a lot of sexual abuse. And every dog is also a symptom. A dog is also an animal who is equally ferocious as wolf, as fox, as hyena. But look at dogs. You wouldn't be like to call a dog. I would like to be called, because that means you are so loved, but then it also means you are so useful. You serve the purpose. And when you decide that an experience is good or bad, before you have had that experience, that to me is inauthentic. That to me is not a devoted way of studying yourself. The anxiety, this is called anxiety. You do not know that you will not perform well. You may miss out your lines, you may falter in front of an audience which is known to be very shady and vocally rude. You are very scared. This is anxiety. The event has not happened, the experience has not happened. You are sure you will not perform well. Why? Because of the memory. The last time you were very sure that you would perform, it is told that your tomatoes were bought for the purpose, right? So you don't want to repeat it. And likewise, since you are so sure you perform well, you will perform well this time too. You do not know the audience. There could be people throwing, shooting bullets at you, but you'll perform well, because no matter what, I am the best. Both the parts are both inauthentic. These have been proven wrong. The best, the Napoleon died in the hands of a petty soldier. Duke of Wellington made sure that Napoleon did not fight with anybody else. He relieved us from Napoleon, who was so imperialist. How? Napoleon is told to have an apprehension, a threat from cats. He didn't like cats. He was very scared of cats, just like people are scared of snakes. And those guys threw a lot, 100, 500 cats in front of Napoleon. So he didn't like pussies. But Napoleon will be remembered not for his imperialism, but for his dedication to the ideals of French imperialism. Before Napoleon, France was not very dominant. And after Napoleon, France continues to be the most dominant, most intellectual country in this world. Mussolini did not come into France. Hitler did not come into France. They are very adjacent. The French always fought the rest of the Europe, so let us not count them into this. They may have their choices because now they are European Union. They can't do away. They can't buy ghee from you, but they have maintained their academia. They can be. If you ask, if a man from Mars or a woman from Venus asks you that which country should I go to understand the cultural evolution of humanity, one should send them to France. At least they are authentic themselves. Small country. And because we make judgments about a perception, the perception is making judgment about an event. Media perception, public perception, general perception is that Bihar and Uttar Pradesh have more crime rates than Mizoram and Goa. Goa is very popular. They have very little crime rate. And if we consciously decide to follow our faulty perception as the unit of our, suppose you cannot measure anything with a false scale. Suppose 100 kilo or let's say 10 meter clothes you have later on turns out to be 7 meter. That may be putting you into some sloppy situations. You see exactly the mankind is into. Because chaos is definitely not lovable, and every action, if chaos, out of chaos great stars may be born, but after the birth of the great star, chaos should have stopped. Otherwise it is not a great star so much as Nietzsche would like us to believe, because there are things beyond. One, our faculty of reasoning has not developed to the extent that we can evaluate a phenomenon. We can, the easy ones. Somebody gifted you a very beautiful diamond watch. It is definitely a good experience. The culture does not tell you or shape it how good it is. It's nice. You eat so much of nice food, so you say, wow, it's a nice food because you tasted it. We are not questioning that. We are questioning the ones where you employ knowledge and power, or knowledge and there was a fulcrums, knowledge and the seeing, the words and signs. The point where you use that, because if you do not justify you are hungry, there has been no science on hunger, the theory of hungry soul, there has been about food, there has been about other things, but you know it when you're hungry. There is no definition of hunger because you feel it. But you do not feel it when it comes to labor relationships. You do not feel it when it comes to genocide, when it comes to misogyny, when it comes to jingoism, when it comes to conservatism, when it comes to fanaticism, when it comes to mob centricity. You are somehow lost. You are confused. You forget it. You say, I'm too small. How do I tell you? I don't know. You falter, you shiver. That is when the person who has not read the Quran or the Upanishad reaches a priest who knows, who tells you that, do you know the economic policies? I will tell you. Do you want to know how to enjoy sex? I will tell you. Do you want to know how to find a girl who will give you a good sex? I will tell you. And we do not realize that all of our memories, most of our thoughts are impressions made by the world. There is no mathematical, scientific explanation why tall men are preferred or booty women are in demand. There is no scientific, it is a trend. It may be universal. It is universal because you have made it universal. So again, it is inevitable if you say it is. If you want to jump into water and say that will I get wet? Yes, you will. But not the wet that you would have gotten otherwise. It's a different thing. So, why are people making those choices? One, it could be ignorance. We never knew we have a choice. When I go to any party, any social gathering, I make sure that when I start eating. Everybody around me has started eating. So I be the last one. I don't think I have a choice. If you have a choice, you exercise it. But it is not just a matter of choice. It is also a matter of feeling left out. You cannot make a choice that others don't approve of you. So at the one end, they are exploiting you, the culture, the society, the world. And at the other end, you are asking for more. You make sure to fit into the standards. So to the extent they are exploiting you, if there is an invisible hand, that invisible hand is not clean, it is dirty. But from the moment you start to conform, the onus is on you, and the chaos is because you do not know. You do not have an authentic experience. Because surely, if you are a lazy person, you would not go to a trekking the next time. If one time you have gone, it is your choice. Or maybe you are too excited. Maybe you got a friend who you did not want to miss riding the horses. But you would not go next time because it doesn't work that way. And an authentic experience does not come free. It demands an authentic self. And because authenticity is a laborious, extensive process. Being sensitive is not as easy as being insensitive. So basically, who are insensitive do not do the cognitive labor that sensitive people do. Basically, what good writers do more cognitive labor on the language part than the commoner who does not do it. So cognitive labor is the only differentiation. You cannot say, okay, so you are a writer, I am a tailor, so we are. Tailor puts in meticulous attention to the every stroke of thread he puts in, right? But the same cannot be said about a commoner who sells, let's say, vegetable groceries. That there are different degrees. And more importantly, we are not authentic because we have stopped valuing authenticity. So we started that communication is a dumb charades. We have come up that we have stopped valuing. Nobody is authentic. Nobody is born authentic. Nobody is a hero. Out of 9 archetypes, Jungian psychology tells, hero is the most celebrated, most charmed one. You want to be hero, even if it is fictional, even if it is a legend. You know there is no Santa Claus, but you like to have a Santa Claus. You like to have a Ram. You like to have a Musa. You can't do away without it. You can't tell a Muslim that if there is no Quran, you have to be Muslim, be kind Muslim. He does not know how to be kind. The same goes for Hindus. Of course, Hindus are much more liberal. They do not take the scriptures literally or until so far. Because the trend to take the literature literally, word by word, is a dangerous trend. That is the trouble with the scripture mongers. One, they do not read completely, and two, they take it verbatim. They do not realize that scriptures were written maybe thousands of years ago, and they would like us to believe that millions of years ago. So then they do not have the time, which is the basis of thought, which is the basis of pleasure and pain. So in the Vedic time, if something was sinful, it may be very celebrated today. It is okay. In Vedic times, they didn't have property rights. Janak did not face any internal civil revolt. Ram faced Ram's family, Ram's father and all, but since when Ram came in, it was all cool. So, now the question is, back to you. So you asked me whether the confusion is not inevitable. I ask you back, whether And prior to that, just let me also underline the fact that authenticity, the lack of respect of authenticity or the intimacy towards inauthenticity is visible in all aspects of consumer culture, including the media, including the social relations they shape, including the political narrative. So the question is, what has changed in humanity, man, women, that at one end they are so liberal, they are so sexually committed, they are so politically vocal, and at the other end filled with so much anxiety, pain, disorder, insecurity in their life. And what makes them believe that this is not a product or this is not a situation that cannot be handled? What is their authenticity? What is their source? What is their reference? One answer is people are unconscious. It goes from the Gurdjieff school of thoughts that mechanical men cannot be religious men. So Gurdjieff's religion is not ritualistic religion, it is not even a contemplative, it is a dynamic religion. Much of the things that we know attributed to Osho comes from George Gurdjieff. So Osho was an Indian Gurdjieff, if you would call it. He was definitely not a Krishnamurti because he did not have that authentic clarity. He definitely was not Raman Maharshi, who was a very celebrated Indian Tantra, Indian Yoga, right? The classical Indianness. So what was he? He was a Gurdjieff. All the formulas of taking joy when listening to a discourse can bring out to more attention. Aldous Huxley is said to have written in his Brave New World at some place. The plot of the Brave New World is that, we will not go into spoilers, but there is a new world 600 years from when he wrote, which was in 1940s, 30s, 40s, wherein students are taught by giving them appropriate doses of soma, which not only increases their memory, their retention power, but also was very addictive in nature. So if you are anxious, if you are angry, you take 2 pills of soma and then you become, haha, I am very nice, so good morning. So the soma is obviously drugs by what Huxley meant, because in his later books he has explicitly confessed taking 0.1 gram of what drugs, mescaline, right? At the one end, we want to be alert. At the other end, we want to be drunk. Now the confusion is not whether you want to, everybody knows why you want to be drunk and why you want to be alert. The confusion is why is it hard for you to take up a choice. It is choice, we have discussed. Either individual level. If you conform to other, conformity is your confidence in other person. That becomes your act. If you are a part of the, if an accused around you is committing an act, you equally become a part of the accused. You can be tried in any court of law. May God not let that day happen. So it is your responsibility, not just you, but your companionship also does not indulge in crime. If a boy around you is whistling at other girl, the girl is well within her rights to include in a fire all the 5 boys. You can't say they were irrelevant, even the panwala. Because the earliest legal obligation they had, every innocent defense should have had, is that they should have called police. So they may have put in phone in their flight mode and then dialed 100. That is perfectly fine for the sake of evidence. So boys, there is still hope. But in general, if one does a crime, the companion, there has to be certain companionship though. It cannot be random, just auto driver and you are just seeing a murder. That's not counted. But 3 friends cannot rob a bank. Better be careful. So your conformity is your You don't want to do the cognitive labor. You said, okay, why not? It's an open source. I'll stick to what he said. To take a extremely painful and a pleasuresome experience as a benchmark or as a sample to our guidance into the influence of society, culture, collective, what the Durkheim would call society, Ayn Rand would have called her collective. For Ayn Rand, the collective did not matter. Not to the extent that people thought it did matter. Let us talk about a sexual experience. Is it very pleasurable? Can you universally say that every sexual experience is pleasurable? Can you say it is painful? Every experience that is connected to sex is painful. How can you have so diverse opinions and yet all of you be so authentic? And I hope sex is nobody should teach you the mechanism of having sex. It is as normal as you are not taught how to walk straight. You can walk straight because of your evolution. And at the point of sex, why we chose sex? For two reasons. One, it is very sexy laga. And two, because it is as much physical as it is abstract, as it is a product of knowledge and power. Words and signs. You cannot have sex with an individual person. Ghost sexing is no more a fashion. You have to have, when you have a fantasy, you have an image. When you describe it, you have a word. You cannot get away from the riddle so soon. And there is no other way through which you describe. Words and signs define the contours of your pleasure and pain. And I would call it your because it is your question. It is as much mine as much as for anybody unconcerned wants to explore the facets of their psychological disorder. But your world tells you that women of such and such attributes are beautiful girls. They have been documented. We can go into all the classical literature to give you a description of which girls are beautiful girls and which girls are girls better being avoided. And we'll talk about girls because girls are the representative of civilizational sexuality. So when British came to India, they not only murdered men and kodo se maro, tiguna lagan dena padega, they also raped countless Indian women. That was anthropology by then. They raped them so often that they also married them and then left them away. Sri Lanka, India, all the Java, whatever civilized world, people civilize other. When somebody tells that I'll civilize you, you definitely are intimidated. You're not civilized by pure preaching, except for one person, which is Gautam Buddha, who got popular, who got viral, who was bang on in the ages where even post mastery was not a fashion. I have no idea how people in Buddha's age used to communicate to the mass. It would be interesting to know how a mild, non-enforcing, just dialogue, just clarity in thoughts could spread from Vaishali, Magad to the far-reaching lands of China and Japan. even in our country, a lot marry. All the northeastern religions are the syncretism of Buddhism and Hinduism and Tantrism, whatever name you call it, but they all derive their sources from Buddhist and Jainist dynasties, less from the so-called dominant Hindu dynasty, the meta-narrative. And that is why your history does not have much references to Sikkim's king. You have practical Ang, Vidarbha, Awadh, everything, but you don't have it because culturally in one way they do differ from you, is that they remember their culture, which is your culture. You are very fast and adapting new cultures. They have upholded it. The indigenous tribe 500 years ago and today, they have not lost their oral tradition. So their memory is not under question. The Adivasi, the Mool Nivasi, the Sarvahara is seldom the benchmark of a civilization. There should be. People like Rankir have wrote more about them and less about the kings and the leaders. But our memory, our judgment is ultimately very faulted. And if it is faulted on many grounds, if not everybody can play chess, can they study history? Should they be allowed to study history if they cannot play chess at all? If somebody cannot play math, game of cards, should he become your astrologer? Can he become your astrologer? But we are very relaxed in our appreciation of our friends. We make friends too easily. Unlike Caesar, who did not take the soothsayer seriously, we take almost everybody seriously. And it is purely because we do not take ourselves seriously. So there has to be an investment of seriousness somewhere. And because you have not read, because you do not know, because you think you are unfit, you have no confidence, you will always find somebody who has more confidence, but just the more confidence. No more factual clarity than you do. And if there is a factual clarity, it would be visible in his actions, her actions, not in the words and signs. Because science can be manipulated, science can be created. Science are indeed been created every moment. Because I don't see why a 3-year-old girl applies lipsticks on her pouty lips. 3-year-old girl. She has the pink lips that you desire for. She doesn't need a Lakme, but she does it. And Queen Gulnar sat on her ivory rose. Give me your rival, O King Feroz. And then Queen Gulnar found her daughter applying the same cosmetics, and she finally blushed and said, I have got the freedom of my life. This is Sarojini Naidu's poem. We celebrate it. We treat children as if they are adults, and with the increase in their age, we start to treat them more like children. So we have wrong conception. We think if we jump from the hill, we won't fall, we'll fly. That is all the so-called reality convincing you towards. If you give vote, you will elect your representative. How are they connected? Any idea? If you give vote, to elect your representative, you need to know your representative. You hardly know. There are places where people say, who is your Sansad? He'll say BJP. Okay, so which party this time are you going to vote? They'll say some other party, Aam Aadmi Party, right? They have never known that person. That's why the people are now getting film stars and famous people into politics, so that the voter feels that I at least know that person. And that is how Manoj Tiwari becomes the Delhi BJP head, because Delhi is filled with Bihar. A part of Delhi is Bihar, Uttar Pradesh first of all, Noida, and if you if God the day did not come, but if all Biharis come from Bihar, from Delhi and Delhi and Bombay would be lousy places like Saharanpur and Vijayawada. So thank you Bihar and Uttar Pradesh for making Bombay what Bombay is, making Calcutta what Calcutta is, making Delhi what Delhi is, making Chennai what Chennai is, without bringing the arrogance that Bengalis, Punjabis, Marathis, Marwadis, and the whole of southern India combined bring out. Biharis have never been arrogant about their Bihari heritage. They have always been looked down, but despite that. And imagine if if a community like this comes to your city and does so much wonders, you know they have contributed, there's no denial to that. You yet can create words and signs that will denigrate the Bihari. Bengal is no less in crime than Bihar. Odisha, less talk the better. Madhya Pradesh, we cannot even talk in a factual manner. But Bihar has been used through words and signs, because words and signs are aimed. When somebody writes something, he has an aim in his mind. That's why people talk a lot but write very little. I thought they were the same kinds of expressions. No, they are not. When you write, you have to. But when you talk, because talking is so simple, it appears to, but what people talk, the core of Wildavsky's political research paper is that you can construct perceptions. If something is constructible by mankind, how is it inevitable? I don't think fire is, man-made, because fire has been discovered, all that thing. But I have seen people getting upset because their Facebook, their wedding photo is not getting liked enough. Now that person will every year celebrate marriage anniversary, because his first anniversary, the 0th anniversary, wasn't good enough. So every year he needs to take a share of it. Okay, so at that point of time, the in-laws didn't like me, but now they like me more, so this time I'll get more privilege. Then the next time it becomes so habitual that if the next day you don't say good morning, it seems rude to the other person, because that person had in its mind, I will say, hey, how are you? You deprive that person the privilege, the pleasure of saying how are you. That becomes very conflicting. All the terrorism of intolerance is such that you deprive other people of some natural right. There have been cases where there have been many cases where divorce has been filed because the wife denied regular sex or did not consent to the person's idea of sex. She wanted, but not all of it. One of them is justified, one is not. I don't want to go which of them, but one of them, there is a distinction. The social order is not tolerant. Social order is very tyrant. That's why it's an order, it's not a plea. Social prayer, it cannot be a prayer. Oh people, let us respect our national flag. The 51A, there has been, no public had went on to confess that I have violated 51AG. So I need to be slapped with 3 sticks at a time. And it is such that the problem with one of the reasons of political and psychological disorder is that people do not try enough. Sometimes they do not try at all, but on other occasions they do not try enough. And conformity is never a mark of intelligence. The first time when the cavemen discovered fire, they must have been dancing with joy. It is unfair for the person of the humans of 21st century to dance with joy when they lit a matchstick. It was very fair for a mythical king better not named to wage a war on another kingdom because the king of the kingdom supposedly stole his wife. That was then. That was then it mattered, perhaps. At that point of time, there is no denial to the fact that women were commodities. Women acted, the good women were good commodities, bad women were imperfect commodities, they were perfectly treated. Right? At that point of time, a woman was not explicitly allowed to have any contact, let alone be sexual, with the quote-unquote other men. Even the kings, queens had their regiment of army of soldiers who were not men, they were trans men, but not other men. The queens were not to be trusted, very much less in the case of our beloved Lord Dashrath. But today, it is a sad state to hear a woman or see a woman behave and appear like a commodity. Today women don't have to ride horses, and they could, if they could ride men, they could well ride horses. There is not much difference between horses and men. Oh, sometimes there are also donkeys. That's the only difference. But, and that could be a choice, that could be purely out of laziness. If I were a woman, I didn't want to do any effort, I would say let's do what others are doing and conform to that, get married, produce as much children as they tell me, and still say, हाँ ये अहिना होई छे, but सावित्री कथा देखने छिए. Good for them. It suits their laziness. I have no problem. I myself do not take baths for days when there is no water in my tap. But beyond that, you cannot say your laziness is not the representative of human character. If people like Marx and Einstein, Antonio Gramsci wrote 3 volumes of prison notebooks, which completely shook away the Leninist propaganda of communism. It's not just the rich, poor, rich, poor, rich, poor. There's also a hegemony, cultural hegemony. How did he forget that? That was written when Mussolini, the wannabe George Bernard Shaw of his times, after that he died when he came out of the prison. So it is doable. If anybody can do it, I can do it. If Bachadri Pal as a woman could track on Himalayas, any Manju Inamina Dika can do it. But whether you want to do it, whether you want to transcend your conformist ideal, whether you want to transgress the expectations bestowed upon you, or do you want to excel in that? Do you like your prison, the cage in which the bird is caged? Do you like the bedroom, honey? If there's a sea view, right? Next year, where do you want to go? Okay, we'll go to the metallic cage. No, not metallic. Okay, I love you. This time, aluminium for you. Okay, I know it's uncomfortable. Life has been tough, right? Your ears must be paining, right? I know. This time I'll give you a diamond. This will hang more to your ears. This will look so beautiful. झुमका गिरा रे बरेली के बाजार में झुमका. You want it, you like it. It may serve you. It is good. Why do you say so? I think men should also be given some ornaments. They'll carry 2 kg of bhaji and 2 kg of aloo in one hand and the other, or at least on their shoulders, just to give them a broader shoulder, because somehow broad shoulders became the mask. And who have contributed to it? the words and signs. The architects, the sculptors, the painters, the writers, they define what you like. And then you say, देखा हमारा प्यार किताबों वाला प्यार है, हम लोग सोनी महिमाल है. When boys fall in love and then they start ignoring other boys around them, other boys call him a Majnu. So basically Majnu, when fell in love, or who said, let's not use the word fell in love, let's say when they were in love with Layla, everywhere he saw Layla, he talked to everyone as he would have talked to Layla. And Layla, Layla, no, not that way. He was very kind. Otherwise, Majnu was very ignorant. He was a stupid young man. He didn't care. He just did what he felt like. He was blunt. But then he saw Layla. And when he was, the ruler told him that, no, we'll kill Layla if you do not consent. He said, but which one will you kill? Everyone is Layla. So that's what the Arabic texts tell us. Now you want to be that. You have chosen to be that. And you will be that once you have that experience. So are you constructing experience? Are you manipulating it? If you're manipulating it, how is it authentic? If it is not authentic, it will again turn into pleasure. Pleasure meeting you. I have never had the pleasure of eating mangoes. I have had the joy of it. There is no pleasure at all doing a jogging 5 lefts. No pleasure. Nobody can have pleasure in it. There is joy in it. If you are a athletes are respected because they are more, not because they are more powerful than us. They can throw balls at a great distance, but they enjoy the moment. They are in the moment. Athletes. Sanju was not a philosopher. He was a warrior. And he has written things that mark more of your psyche than, for that matter, Sigmund Freud. War, if you want to fight. So do this, do that. And it is very practical, very small book. No jingoism in it. No lingo, jargons, nothing. It was just plain things. Written centuries before. It still is relevant. You can take that as literally if you like. I would again tell you to use some common prudence, but if you want to. But you cannot take everything verbatim. Only a conscious being, in Gurdjieff's terminology, can enjoy or can make a conscious comment. All our representations of gods are inauthentic. They may be Ram in history sense. There is no doubt about it. I am not a historian. Digging history has never been my hobby. Even if he was, it wouldn't matter. I would still not change my opinion. Even if he wasn't, even if it's just a Malgudi days, I would still take the kind things, nice things, and I will be a part of that thing. It doesn't matter whether it happened or not. But he was certainly not in the form that you tell me to be, because your memory is distanced by thousands of years of annexations and wars, social upheavals. How is it suddenly that in 5th century BC, when Buddhism and Jainism were on ripe, it was so much ripe in Ashoka's time, evident to the world today. The first signature of Buddhism is in Ashoka. There is not first signature of Janaki Vallabh Mandir in anybody else. But they suddenly start to appear after 3rd AD. Much more in the time of Chandraguptas and Skandagupta, Samudragupta, all the people. And in 7th century, 8th century, till 7th, 8th century, there is a continuity. Nobody can say one is more dominant than the other. After the advent of Adi Shankaracharya, who mobilized a larger cause, Buddhism started to fade. The mutts became the abode of prostitute. And today, after a distance, a man can make an error in the first instance, But when you read it collectively, socially, you treat it with authenticity, you got to have some measurement of it. You cannot take it word by word. But the fact that people like conformity, it is not just laziness, it is also their inferiority. Because the Superman, the Ubermensch of Nietzsche would never ever conform. That's why Nietzsche, all of the books of Nietzsche talk about non-conformist people, the heroes, about who Nietzsche does not make jokes, because about others he has made plenty of laughable jokes. Every god that you admire is a non-conformist. That is what you remember, you like about him. The Ram, Dasar had 4 sons. Bharat Shatrughan has never been seen a temple. Show me a temple of Bharat Shatrughan. Isolation. No. Urmila and all the 4 daughters, no mention. But Ram and Sita and Lakshman, they transcended. They said, I will honor my father's judgment or contract. I will do it. The wife said, then I will do what I have contracted. Then the brother said, I will do what I have been contracted. They valued the contract theory so much so that they chose to leave the palace. Nobody told them. Ram did not even have to speak. The people would have made sure that Ayodhya loved Ram. Ram is not a political hero. Ram is a moral hero. Ram is a spiritual hero. Ram is a he has done nothing to ensure the Ram Rajya. Ram has no interest in politics. Ram is more of a philosopher. I think he took the Vanvas also to enjoy the great philosophy that the Aranyaks wrote. He wasn't hanging around and making babies like many other people do. When Pandavas were into the exile, they each of them married. They made sure they had 7-8 kids. Some went even to the abode, heaven. Ram did not do that. That's why you respect Ram, because he has a moral character that you do not have and you one day aspire to have. But the tragedy of conformity, the tragedy of accepting imperfect language as acceptable, incorrect grammar as acceptable. Hey, don't look into I don't mind my grammar. Why can't one? If you stop minding your grammar, apart from the fact that your structure of mind will distort, will come to that, it is also very confusing. So if daily conversations is like that, I'm reaching in 5 minutes and you appear at 45 minutes, when you equate 5 to 45, it may be that I'll take 45 millions and I'll pay you just 5 million. That is because you made sure that happens. I can't take you serious. Tomorrow if you tell me that you need some money, I'll ask you how much. You say 10,000. I will say that no, you're exaggerating. Perhaps you only need 70 rupees. So you said, okay, let's ask 10,000 because 70 more days I can enjoy. But also, as the great linguist Ferdinand de Saussure convinced us, to which people like Claude Lévi-Strauss expanded, enriched the humanity with the great study of the mind, the structuralism, which tells that mind is structured through language, words and signs. Not speaking about somebody in a group. So I am in a group with 10 people, 6 people, 5 people, and I'm continuously talking about the 3 people, but the 2 people, 3 to 5, yeah. The rest 2 people are getting no conversation. They are not the characters of my story. And those who are the characters are good characters. I'm not scolding them, let's say in a good sense. I'm respecting them, patronizing them. It means the structure of mind or the structure of cognition is such that the other 2 will feel left out, which will, secrete enzymes from the body. It is that morphological, it is that anatomical, it is that medical. If you break it, you are bound to be confused. And Only the inferior mind can survive in confusion. That is the problem. Pigs can roll in dirt. Lion can't. Lion won't. Never seen a lion having the pleasure of getting himself dirty. It is also important to understand, to get to an agreement, to get to a consensus about what pain are we talking. What is pain? Of course, every one of us has encountered, there can be no exception whatsoever, some or the other form of physical pain. Fatigue is a physical pain. Falling from a bicycle is a physical pain. Getting crushed out in a crowd is a physical pain. Everybody gets through it. But that is not a pain per se, that you do not remember how you were slapped by your professor, by your teacher, or by a mob, or by a police inspector, whatsoever, after the incident. The intensity of it, how hot it felt, how humiliating it was. The humiliating part is there. So in legal terms, let me put it in a different way, that the pain is not the actus reus of the event, it is the mens rea of the event. Right? The act has happened. Okay. So the whole of the criminal trial will run around the prosecution proving an offense, that the offense did happen, and the accused is legally blameworthy for it. So an appropriate sentence must be awarded to the accused. While the defense will argue, they will like to submit that either the event did not happen or the accused was not the cause of the event, and more so, even if he caused it, he did not intend so. So most of the criminal trials run around because black and white cases, you murder somebody on the streets, everybody saw it, you yourself have confessed it. Even the dead soul before dying told that yahi hai wo mera qatil. But then, if as a defense lawyer, they would talk about the mens rea, the intention behind it. A lot of torture comes to people when a lot of good things are done to them. Do not be under the illusion that if I have a good intent towards you, I will definitely be doing actions good to you. I have good intentions of keeping you as a pet, right? I like human pets, especially the bears. Yeah. Bulky bears. I like them to pet them around. And I make sure that they tend to believe themselves as bears. We are not talking monkeys, because monkeys now happen to be religious symbol. It is ironical how our definition of gods and our icons shape over time. Just as how our notions about love, sex and freedom of speech change over time. At one point of time, definitely not far behind from our time, speaking trash language was not acceptable at all. Today, trash language is becoming the economy of social clickbait. At least in Indian context. That way, Westerners are far more civilized because they have not yet come up to appreciate, at least publicly. This is not a good sign that your representatives, be it cinema star or a political leader or a professors, are using YouTube teachers. They think it is very okay. So, and they do it so that they have power. The fact that girls are now openly allowed or tolerated, or I wouldn't say expected, but
I would not be surprised if they did, right? They think they're asserting their freedom. I think they're conforming to the ideals. If you do a thing because you're allowed to do a thing, are you doing it for freedom or for conformity? Is a choice one asks oneself. If you salute your flag because you're told to salute your flag, are you actually saluting the flag? There is no harm in saluting a flag of any country, good, bad, ugly. Your choice, your salute. But if you will be punished for not saluting a flag, and you're saluting the flag nonetheless because you don't want to be punished, how nationalist are you? You are a nationalist when you would salute a flag even when it is punishable to salute a flag. The freedom fighters did it. That's why they were jailed. Gandhi never stole a bread from a local shop. Nehru did not go to a liquor shop and was so drunk that he abused a sergeant. They saluted their national flag. All the people. The national flag was an anthem, an emblem of Indian struggle. That was the only icon available to the commoner. Tiranga. बच्चा बच्चा तिरंगा और गांधी बाबा का छापा पहन के घूम रहा है. If you are told to like a certain set of girls, all the cinema, all the literature, they define gender roles. So, if there are no literature and cinema and all art, men and women are equal. So, they make them unequal. So, the dummy's guide to get away from gender disparity: stop watching cinema, stop reading literature. Or at least have the courtesy of forgetting the fictionality. Don't take them for real. Please. Romeo and Juliet has been an ideal of pedophilia. Let us not encourage that. There is no joy in celebrating failed love stories because they are so sacrificial, and yet I have not come across any love story which has a social contribution. Romeo and Juliet did not care about the world, for sure. Laila Majnu had no concern about the plethora of Arabic political dynamics. Who else? Not many lovers. Radha Krishna. Krishna had social consciousness, so he ultimately friend-zoned Radha. Krishna is magically powerful also because he not only friend-zones Radha, but he also friend-zones Meera, who came much later, who does not come into Mahabharata. But now today, you would not be surprised if girls or if men people believe that Radha and Meera were both supposedly quote-unquote lovers of Krishna. They were not. One had a real encounter, a real experience. The other had a literature to back her up. I would be surprised if Meera had fallen in love with Ram. She could not only because Ram does not fit into his temperament, but also because Ram is not popular in Rajasthan. And do you know, people from southern India worship more Murugan Swami, the Kartikeya. In the West, they worship Gajanan Ganpati Bappa Moria. That is their Hinduism. It is only a select part of the discourse that is telling that the rest does not matter. That is the problem with scripture mongers. That you read a certain book and then you say that is the best book. That is not true. All books are dictionaries at best, from which you can learn the words. There is no harm in learning the words. Again, if you have Shakespeare had around 50,000 words in his vocabulary. We, the university goers, we, the well-educated, we, the information technology dwellers, imagine the vocabulary of Shakespeare if he had internet to look out for new words and for new good read quotes. They had none. 50,000 words vocabulary. And today our vocabulary is limited to around 800 to 1,000. A good speaker is expected to have 2,500 words into vocabulary. So that way it is fine to read it as a dictionary. But you cannot. The dictionaries have problem. They have an order, alphabetical, which is actually not alphabetical, that's called lexicographical. But people are so used to inauthentic representations, homophones, that they don't mind, they don't notice, so long they think they know the meaning of it. And what they think is better not a subject of inquiry, because most people do not think. Most people do not think for themselves. Of course they think whether to walk left or right. Of course they think whether to take, hot cup of tea or cold ice cream. That much they have to. But beyond their functional pursuits, they are seldom found. Contemplative, let us use the word contemplative. Meditative. What is meditation? You meditate into a problem and then you find a solution. Meditation is entering into the problem and focusing completely into it. And by focusing, there is no effort, there is no, I will not think about anything, Jai Sri Ram, Om Hari Om, Allahu Akbar. That is not this mechanicalization. It is like I will not eat a day, so I will not have to clean myself. I can employ myself into the yajna. So hunger becomes a good thing. I don't think any God who makes you hungry is your God at all. He is your jailer who hasn't received his salary. Which God would want you to torture yourself? 36 hours you won't eat just because I told so. And then I'll come, then you'll eat. If you can be that torturous towards yourself in the name of the God, your God is not authentic. The fear part. It would be, however, unfair to say that conformity or having confidence in the history or the so-called perception of reality is merely out of laziness. Of course, there are far more committed and dedicated people. Every committed person aspires to have an ordered world. Some even reach to the extremes of what we call obsessive compulsive disorder. They would want the house to be clean no matter the house is burning. Even if it is burning, it has to be a clean burning house. They want that order. So in their small petty senses, they retain that order. They manifest that order. But sad enough, their efforts are very much limited, and so are the scope of it. You cannot clean the whole city for that matter. Right? All our philosophical understanding of the creation of the other, now whether it is disputable who created who, but let us assume that we create the other, we construct the other. Is a separation, a difference in the definition of order we have. So if two people can sing in chorus a song, they won't be in a conflict, because nobody is stealing nobody's show. But if one is the lead singer and the other is a chorus, you know what a chorus is, right? So let me revise my first proposition, my position on communication in today's time, by saying that human communication is a chorus of dumb-charades. And by human, I only mean the human I tend to know. I am not an expert on human psychology, because I believe human psychology does not exist. does not exist in the sense that, how do I put it? In the sense that it is functionally thought to do. So a psychotherapist cannot cure you. The money one pays to a psychotherapist is not with a, you cannot sue a psychotherapist if he cannot cure you. You cannot sue a medical a practitioner, a doctor, if he cannot treat you. And you cannot sue a driver who met an accident and the passengers got hurt. The negligence, the recklessness, other things do come at play. But under an ideal circumstance, he cannot be tried merely because he was a driver, on the basis of fact whether he was a driver. Drunk and drive is an offense, but traveling drunk is also an offense. So more on a moral level, the difference is of the kind. It is the punishment may differ, but that person is yet as accused had it not been so. But anyways, maybe I'm not, I'll have to examine more on that. But human psychology, self-help books, all the erotica, all the religious texts, I haven't come across any bookstore in the country where I could find a treatise on medical science. Our fears are driven by the fact that one day we'll be dead. Nobody will dial our number, nobody will like our status. We'll cease to exist. And that fear, you don't die when you turn 70, you die every day. And since you're afraid to die, you do things to survive. An attention seeker may say that I just want to survive, I love attention so much, so I do things to get attention. Right? And that person is perfectly justified in his own way. Because so long knowledge is instructive, any instruction, any order cannot claim that it is indifferent or unrelated to what is expected of the learner. Again, a power thing. And when there is a will to power, there is no love. People in love are never confused whether to kiss or not, whether to slap or not, whether to stop talking for days or not, whether to bestow all the love you have in your heart to your lover or not. They are not confused. They suddenly get the clarity that they live a very beautiful, lovely life. But when you have to make a moral dilemma where you don't have to take a decision, you suddenly get very confused. When you have to vote, you get confused who to vote. And when you have to lynch, you are not at all confused. So the fact that there is a confusion, the chaos is again iterated to be a function of one's confession, not one's natural state of mind. What the witness says is not necessarily the same as what has happened. It is the witness's agency and the cross-examiner's intelligence to derive the truth out of it. And let me be upfront in telling that we do not, as a nation, have a sense of justice, and definitely we do not have a sense of cross-examination. India's history has been so philosophically great because of its art of cross-examination. Those who tell that, breeding, let me use the term breeding daughters brings disgrace to your ancestors in heaven, do not and have certainly not read the Yagyavalkya Gargi debate. They certainly have not meditated upon Yam Savitri Samvad, and they certainly have not even pondered about the conversations between Krishna and Draupadi in, I don't remember which Parv, but in the Agyatavas Prasan. They have not. And since they have not, they do not have an alternate reality so vast as other people have. And now it's a power tussle. And that's a chaos. A single lie can breed so much of confusion. Imagine when the lies are told to the nations. They are told that two countries wanted to separate because there was a communal angle to it. They wanted a country precisely for the Muslims. But they forget to exclaim that they wanted a certain, that they had certain conditions which others did not comply. There was no political bonding. There was no the partition of India can tell us a lot about why it justifies British rule in some sense. Because once you have parted and once you have a fight, now you don't even need a British to govern you. You are governed by the same colonized imperialistic mindset. And what an irony that the British and the French and the Dutch and the Germans and all the so-called European countries who once were the torch bearers of imperialism now claim to be free from any colonies. Because now we live in Kafka's penal colony, where the only difference that postmodern world is witnessing at large is that the violence part of intolerance is getting much beyond hand. Earlier, and it has to do with the population, it has to do with the corrupt government, it has to do with the political question. It has nothing to do with a WhatsApp forward survey where people say 2040 society will die. Society dies every day. Society is born every day. There is no classical definition of society. Society is, social is when people interact. Interaction is social. There's something called social media where all you get real is the communication. And if people are not driven by laziness, if they are not driven by ignorance, if they are not driven by lack of access, lack of power, then what else are they driven by? I would like to propose they are driven by fear and greed. They are driven by a central idea that they should be important. All animals are equal, but I am more equal. That is the greed. For that you get money, for that you get wealth, for that you get power, for that you get, what else do you get? You also get some beer, right? And you do any and everything to ensure that you get the attention, you are comfortable, you are well respected, you are different, you are special. That is the greed part. And the fear part is that I am not special enough, or I am not special at all. That is such a fearful thing. They know more GK questions than I do. They are more quote unquote aware than I am. Because they happen to know when was Charles IV born and in which year did Alexander the Great die in Macedonia. So they know more and you know less. Perhaps yes, but if there is no practical test, how do you judge? How do you judge a person who speaks English to be more aware, more educated than a person who does not speak English? Why is that a prima facie case at all? Because there is a fear. And the fear and greed, though we may need a different discussion for this altogether, is also in my opinion, an ignorance. Ultimately, a laziness or a denial of cognitive effort. So, people who are insensitive may say they are insensitive because the world around them is insensitive. And if they support the victim, they will lose their privileges. Would you pardon them? Would you tell them they are well within their rights to see a rape happening and not confessing this in the court of law? Or at best, normalizing it? You know, we are not much ahead of the times when in villages when women were raped and the panchayat took cognizance of it. The rapist was punished with getting married to the girl he raped. Now I do not understand whether the panchayat stood in defense of the victim or in defense of the rapist. Now they are giving him a license. And if we examine much of our social norms, we'll come across such hypocrisies and such dual standards, such cruel jokes. At one hand, the womanhood of today is, crossing the entrenched boundaries of success, power, and at the next hand, they also do not consume food for the whole day during Karwa Chauth. So at one point they are equal. Some animals are equal, but some animals are dynamically equal. And the feminism, for all that 3B, black, lesbian, all that orchestras of sexuality, has failed to identify the contradiction inherent in their definitions. If gender is performative, both the genders do perform. So, feminism should also fight from its feminism, just as Marxism should fight from Leninism and Stalinism and all forms of Kanhaiya Kumar communism. Who else is a communist? I don't think we have much intellectual contribution coming from communism these days, because they also have to realize that they are fighting from their own intellectual bankruptcy. And about marriage and sociology, I think sociology is a study of fish by monkeys who live in desert. And we will not be surprised to find out that civilization did not first occur in Europe, which is the most conducive place to stay for many, but in Africa and in Asia. So we are ultimately apes in search of a meaning of civilization. And it is again my firm belief, in sync with Fitch, that all consciousness is the consciousness of the immediate self. So if in a strike of lightning one finds out that truth cannot be taken away from mankind. Regardless of how Socrates or Galileo was treated, their science, their wisdom continue to enrich every thinking being that comes into the world. You may choose to forget it, you may choose to negate it, but you cannot stay untouched by it. So, I am sure fear, negligence, innocence, ignorance, there could be a lot many factors that help or that motivate a person to. Sometimes it is just that your friends don't like it. You don't watch a movie, you don't eat a food, you don't because people around you don't do it. You are that sacrificial altruist being. So it is not even a fear. It is self-induced submission. You try to be kind by doing what others do so that you do not become a hindrance and all that things. It is such a pleasant, lovely, sweet thing to do. But they're all ultimately conformist in nature, and so long one is conformist, so long five people think the same thing, at least somebody of them have cheated. You can't expect a class of 100 students, each intelligent, each meritorious, to write the same answer paper. That is not true. That is not making sense. Or maybe even the teacher is just a copy of it. That's another factor. But besides that, beside pondering, beside lamenting, beside regretting about human inabilities, how about celebrating the human spirit? How about understanding that if you are capable of lifting 100 kg of iron, you're also capable of dealing with mental chaos by sorting out things, by taking the onus, by being an. That is what the first proponent of postmodernism, Lyotard, who actually coined the term postmodern, even he tells that no matter how small a man is, he has a communication cycle. He can communicate. He can break the sequence of the communication, because he was talking about communicated theory. So I think this could also be generalized, or if not, we have a plethora of existential literature. If words and signs still mean to you, if you still rely on charlatans like, several of them, why name one and give other the benefit of doubt? Anybody who tells you to replicate their thinking is telling you that there is no joy in this world. They are making you pessimist, they are making you depressed. It is not ironical that the great film star Charlie Chaplin died out of depression. He was a successful star. He was a very good actor. He died of depression. And the poor peasant who cannot manage 2 meals a day still is jolly singing a song because they are aspiring for it. So, if one wants it, one can get it. That is the whole teaching of Buddhism. Buddhism is an existential religion. It has no dogmas. At least Buddha didn't have any dogma. And it is a matter of common sense to imagine or see why people are so invested in violent religions like Christianity, Islam, Hinduism, and less in Sikhism, and very less invested in religions of peace. So if 800 crore people choose to believe in violence as the only means available to mankind, the best an individual can do is to create a small world, a microcosm of people who do disagree. Because if violence is a solution, wolves would have been the ruler of the country. Because you cannot be more violent than wolves, tiger, lion, elephants, monkeys. None of the jungle story characters you imagine them to be so cute and nice. What do you think about the deer? Deer is a very violent animal. You cannot just take away a deer and deer would do. They have thorns. They have like horns. No animal in its true sense is non-violent, but their violence is contained to the event itself. You go and slap a dog, the dog barks at you, it bites you. But 10 minutes later, If you sit down there, he sits down there. There is no continuous fight among human. The men's real element is so prevalent. The so sad humiliation or the so sad orgasm was so impressive, so impactful that you remember it years to come. And you make others remember. I think most of the memories would not exist if you don't talk about it, if you don't create a photograph of it. You leave a marker, you write a book about it, you create an image about it. So if you make, if the parents of the society did all that ding dong, all that celebration when the girl passed her matriculation, perhaps the girl would have been much more inclined towards education, right? But every girl knows that the only way to get some attention in this life is to have this ding dong and where I'll, get married to somebody. So they somehow have to perform to these ideals. So this expectation that you need to get married may come from the society, but the consent definitely comes from the women. And then women say that marriage has not been useful, my husband is insensitive. What else do you expect? Most of the times husbands don't even know things beyond the name of his wife. They don't care. They have different set of expectations from the world. And the mere fact that there is no communication between a husband and wife is the reason why civil courts exist. Otherwise, husband and wife both, none of them should have any property conflict. They are both ultimately sleeping on the same bed, living under the same roof. But there is. And when there is a divorce, there is a big alimony issue. Today, when people are so afraid of divorce, it's not because of the emotional disvestment, but also because of the financial commitment. Because whether you oblige your wife with the legal or financial duties during the marriage may not be the concern of the court, but after the divorce, her maintenance definitely is, and that becomes a threat to the existing patriarchy, because now something that you earlier did for free, now you have to pay for it and pay for the maintenance part of it. That is the reason why all that slut shaming and the concept of nightclubs spoiling the society. Because earlier only men loitered around nightclub, which definitely had women, but now women think it as a prudence. Of course, nightlife is bad. Any life in a society full of zombies is bad, but that joy should come from you within, not from a literature, not from a person, not from a cinema. And that leaves me to conclude by asking, what are our thoughts if not cinema, not literature, not society, not books, not friends? What is the original thought that I have ever had? If you are instant in telling it, you certainly must be very respected, admired. But if you are taking time to think out, it is a proof that your memory does not respect or celebrate your originality. It only respects, it only permits, it only leaves room to the images, the events that mattered in the social. So if somebody dies at your home, you can't be laughing about it.